Hi, I just wanted to do a quick look at some of the custom GPTs. So since Dev Day in November 2023, there's the possibility for people with or without coding experience to build their own custom versions of GPT. I suppose one way of thinking about this is that when we engage with GPT ordinarily, we do prompts for each conversation to steer it in a certain way, to set up a certain type of task or ask it questions or whatever. And we might want to find a way of getting GPT to operate within certain parameters on a ready-to-roll basis. You know, we don't want to each time have to put in a long prompt that sets all the sorts of things we want. A really good example, clear example of that, I suppose, is PsychOut. And here I just put together, I wanted, a colleague was asking, where could we go, where could students go for visits, psychology themed, rather than searching lots of stuff or thinking through my memory and all the rest of it. What I thought was a good idea is just really quickly put together a little custom GPT. I called it PsychOut. And what this does is it creates UK-based ideas for psychology themed trips. So you name the place in the UK that you're interested in, say how many ideas you want. It will give you for each one name of the place, the location, a couple of sentence description, contact details, website, entry price if there is, and so on. And isn't that great to have all that? For me, something like that, it would take me much longer to do that 2 or 3 times than to actually just put together a little custom GPT that'll do it for you. And that's just a really simple example. I've got another example here, ViverBot. Maybe we just have a really quick look at this. And this struck me because I had a number of students going for Viver, and just how important it is to give them practice at answering questions about their thesis, giving them a chance to talk about their thesis. Now, this would never, what I'm suggesting here with ViverBot, would never replace knowledgeable academics involved in the thesis discussing the thesis with the student. It can't replace that. But what it can do is it can provide an addition to that, an additional resource. It can be part of a conversation about that. It can ask questions. It could be 3 a.m. Wednesday morning. It doesn't matter. ViverBot is there, ready and willing to help out. So literally all you do here, I think you can probably see it down the bottom, is you upload using the paper icon, upload your thesis, and then it will treat that as its knowledge base. It will use its interaction skills, its predictive text skills, it's all of the vectorized knowledge about clauses and so on. It's all of the skill that makes it an excellent large language model will be there. So it'll interact and respond appropriately to questions and engage and ask appropriate questions. But the knowledge base is the thesis that's been uploaded. I think that's really wonderful. There's always got to be with caveats. I think you can see down the bottom here, ChatGPT can make mistakes. Consider checking important information. So it never replaces, but I think it's quite a useful tool, and it might also help deal with student anxiety prior to having a Viver. And isn't it great to have a few run-throughs like that? So that's just a little example of another tool. I have a couple more I want to really quickly go through. Jobbot. Here the idea is that it might do 3 roles. One is give a bit of careers advice, check through a CV, and 3, ask questions based on a job description. So if I was to upload, press the paper icon, I upload my job description, which is a curator of an art institution, and it's going to kind of ask me, it says, welcome, what do you need? Basically, do you want document checking, careers advice, job interview, simulation? And I just put interview. And then it's going to do it based on the job description that I've just uploaded. Great. I'll begin with the simulated job interview 1. Can you tell me about a curatorial project you have led in the past and how you ensured its success? That's quite a good little question, actually. It's not bad. I'm going to not do well on this interview, I'd imagine. But I then respond, it will respond. And seeing this, it just reminds me that when I was putting together this, I did have to do a bit of training with it. And that's a lovely thing about building a GPT. You can train it and you can see its responses like this. Then I can tell it, right, I can go into editing. I can say, right, your last response is good in a way, or your question, and I can talk about the limitations. So during training for this, I found that it would ask clumps of questions, maybe 5, 10 together, and that's no good really. I wanted it to wait. I wanted it to give time for response, and then I wanted it to at least sometimes take into account some of the answers that were given. Sometimes there might be a question response, and that needs a follow-up question, a human context that would have a follow-up question, and I was trying to simulate that. Okay, so that's just another example. Let's see if we can find a final example I think we'll use is EngageBot. What's the concept at work here? EngageBot creates personal and data-informed emails, or well, supportive emails. I'm not sure that description is entirely exactly all that it's trying to do. So imagine you've got a lot of student data. Imagine the data might include student performance on assignments. It might include things like attendance. I've created a completely fabricated Excel sheet with very, very simple data. Let me just upload that. So I see one of my characters there is called Zan. I might ask about Zan. So I'll say email for Zan. So we've got this completely created data about a created student called Zan. We have a couple of assessment details in for Zan across T1, time period 1, time period 2, but also attendance for Zan at time period 1 and time period 2. Let's see where we get to, see whether it likes this, or there might be a little problem with it. I've uploaded the extremely simplified Excel sheet. EngageBot should now be analysing it, and it should be trying to generate, if you like, a draft. You might consider it either an early or a more advanced draft, but it should be some sort of draft that we can send to Zan. I'm hoping it'll be moderately supportive. Okay, here we go. Dear Zan, hope this message finds you well. I'm reaching out to touch base on your academic journey, particularly focusing on your recent assessments and engagement in class. Firstly, I want to acknowledge your initial achievement in the first assessment, where you scored a remarkable 75%. This is a testament to your abilities and understanding of the course materials. However, I've noticed a significant dip with your score in the second assessment, where it dropped to 20%. While fluctuations in performance are part of any learning process, it's important to address such changes to ensure they don't become a hindering pattern. I also observed that your engagement time has decreased from 50% in the first term to 10%. I must admit I put in quite dramatic figures for Zan. In the second, regular participation and active engagement are crucial for a deeper understanding of the better performance in assessments. This connection between engagement and performance seems to be reflected in your assessment scores. I think that is really good. Now, I ran this through earlier, and it had an email that didn't underscore the connection quite as clearly as that. I really like this one. That is a nice feature of this. Sorry if you can hear a plane going overhead. That is a nice feature of this, which is that it is no problem for it to reiterate. Very noisy plane at the moment. We'll just let that pass. Okay, please know that we're here to support you. It mentions AGT. We encourage you to take every advantage of the resources available. Obviously, we would want to give more specific details about those, but this kind of is a broad, generic type template. I think it offers something. I don't think it replaces humans. I think it's useful to have human oversight for various reasons, but this is what I think, that without this tool, would we be able to give as much detailed engagement with the student data that we have to as many students? And I think maybe at its best, the partnership of working with AI in this tool could be that it enables us to reach students we might otherwise not reach. Maybe they're in the mid-range, they're not scoring at the highest end, and more particularly, maybe they're not disengaged or at a worrying level, in any respects. There might be a lot of students who could benefit from some sort of, Zan's an extreme case, but there might be many students who could benefit from being contacted, supported, encouraged, reminded, and so on. And I think that the AI and the fact that it can instantly produce emails that hopefully encourage students, hopefully talk about the resources available to them, remind them that we're aware of them and that we can offer them support in various ways. I think that's a positive. So I think, does AI add to what we do, or does it subtract from what we do? And I'm hoping that something like this illustrates that it is possible to use it intelligently together in a partnership. In the training, there was a lot of training involved, actually, and I don't think this is perfect. I don't think that email is even perfect. There was a lot of training involved in getting the tone right. At one stage, it was, when I asked it to be encouraging, it produced draft email responses that were almost like a coach cheering on at the touchline, way to go, you got this. And I think there's a time and a place for that, but I don't think that's necessarily right in these hypothetical examples of maybe a student who's dropped, like Zan, from 75% to 20%. A different tone, I think, and a more academic tone was probably appropriate for all of these emails. And so it did take a lot looking at, and one of the good things, this looking at these emails, it was part of, I would run it through like this, and then I would comment, I would edit it and say, look, your last response, really good in some ways, but I thought the tone was a bit wrong here, or could it be made more like this? And I think that iterative process in development where you give it examples. When it did something really good, sometimes I was quote it and say, look, this is a really good example of email feedback where this happened to the student. This is the email. It's brilliant. Can we do more like this? And I think that really helps as well. And that was a part of this process. I used some other software as well in generating responses. And when I got a great response, I started to import that as an example and did some training of the custom GPT, in this case EngageBot, using the very best output, and also sometimes quoting the weak output and feeding back on why and where it was weak. I hope that's been interesting. I mean, I think there are many flaws, but I think there's something potentially democratizing and empowering for us in using this. And also, ultimately, I do like the idea that we could enable our students to build their own custom GPTs or other forms of chatbot. And that just seems like a wonderful skill. Okay, thank you very much.